compare-contrast essays. These are essays just like some of the other essays that we've learned about so far. We've learned about the narrative essay. The compare-contrast is the next essay that we will learn. Some future essays we will look at are argumentative essays, process analyses essays. But as I said, today we're going to focus on the compare-contrast essay. Ask yourself, what is a compare-contrast essay? Well, basically what you look at in a compare-contrast essay are similarities and differences between whatever it might be, between one thing with one other, like two different things. You couldn't compare three things. They get more complex, these essays, when you compare more than two items. But what would you compare in an essay, and why would you use an essay to do it? Well, you can compare things like cars you want to buy. These are actually, once you learn these techniques, using them to figure out what car you want to buy will really make you look at the choices objectively and make a better, more educated decision in many cases. So cars, you might be thinking about two different types of dogs or pets to get, and when you look at, again, in this this essay structure, it allows you to weigh options a little more clearly. You might look at two different computers that you want to buy, or even two different houses that you want to buy. And today we're going to really focus on that as our example, of two different types of houses that we would want to buy, or exactly two different houses, not types. Okay, we're going to look at these compare-contrast essays at really what we're going to compare and contrast. And remember, we looked at similarities and differences. They were the main things. Today we're going to talk about two different houses. The similarities could be price and style. Differences might be the location or floor space. But how do we go about writing these essays? Well, we can compare them either by items or compare them by the criteria, like price, location, and floor. Okay, now, how do we put this in an essay? How do we take this essay structure that we've learned, introduction, body, conclusion, and make a compare-contrast essay out of it? It still has all of those components that we talked about. An introduction that brings your readers into the discussion, whoever your readers might be. It might be someone specific like your family. It might be you and your spouse, your children. It might be a broader audience targeted. It might be an academic essay, so it's targeted academia, like a research paper. So all of the things that we've learned about audience we would use. But we want to remember to bring that audience in. We still need a thesis statement because it is an essay. Remember, a thesis statement is one of the hallmarks of what an essay is. It's what's separated from before the narrative story from a narrative essay. The body, the structure, which we're going to go over in a moment in a lot of detail for the compare-contrast essay. And then the restatement and the conclusion once again. The essay has intro, thesis, body, conclusion with the restatement, and the compare-contrast essay is no different with that restatement. So let's go ahead and look at some of these structures and different ways to write the essay. To compare them by the items, which are the two houses, we have our intro, house A. We talk about the price of house A, the location of house A, the floor space of house A. Then we discuss house B, and then the same thing, price. Then we look at the location and the floor space, and then we have our conclusion at the end. Now, another structure to write this compare-contrast essay would be to compare by the criteria, to use the price, location, and floor space to actually structure it. So we have price, then we talk about house A and house B. Then we have location, again, house A and house B. Now, these could either be separate paragraphs, or these could both be in the same paragraph, depending on the length. Then floor space, house A and house B, and then your conclusion again at the end. Really depends on how long your paper should be or how deep you want to go into the comparison. Now we want to ask ourselves, why do we write these? We talked a little bit about at the beginning about two cars that I might want to buy, two pets. But in a classroom, in an academic setting, in your other classes other than English that you take, what kind of things would you compare? It might be two theories, two different opposing theories, whether it be in a physics class, an English class, an operating systems class, a network class, two different things, two different theories about those. It might specifically be two different operating systems that you're trying to compare. It might be two different mathematicians that you just want to see how they look at things differently. Again, remember, it's similarities and differences. So let's look at some of these similarities and differences. What's your purpose for writing a thesis, or what is your purpose or thesis statement? So what should my thesis statement look like? Well, here are a couple ideas. Even though there are many similarities between the houses on 5th and 6th Street, the floor space that the one on 6th Street has makes it the best choice for a big family. So for a big family, we're comparing the 5th and 6th Street homes. If future growth potential is the goal of our company, then the benefits of making the initial small investment outlined in Budget A far outweigh those small financial savings in the short term indicated in Budget B. So here are a couple ideas. Now, we've gone through this. We've learned a little bit about why we write compare-contrast essays, what they are, what's incorporated in them, the similarities and differences between two things. We've looked at, writing by item or writing by the criteria that we compare those items by. That's some of the reasons why, some of the thesis statements that we might have or purposes behind writing those. And I hope that you've got a little bit better understanding now of what they are so that you can actually sit down and begin pre-writing. The first step to beginning one of these is the same in every essay that we talked about when we talked about process. You start pre-writing to get an idea. You come up with a couple things to write about, then you start looking at the similarities and differences, and then you start to get your criteria. Are there, 3 similarities and 2 differences, 2 similarities and 1 difference? You might have a whole bunch of similarities and a whole bunch of differences, but they might fit into specific categories, like things that might have to do with budget or cost. You might have 3 or 4 different things that have to do with location, maybe not location itself, but location in the country versus location in the city, and that might have to do with schools and other things that you could combine. So when you put these things down on paper, then you start to get one of those outlines like we looked at earlier, and you have somewhere to begin writing this compare-contrast essay. Next time, we will be looking at the process analysis essay. Thank you.